So thank you for attending our special presentation today. My name is Julie Esterline, and I'm the project coordinator of the Interstate Passport program, which is housed at the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. The highlight of today's call is a presentation on the modified ACE military guide. We'd love to get to know who is on the call. So if you are interested, please share your name, title, and institution or system in the chat. Before I turn it over to our colleagues at Vantage Point, I'd like to quickly talk about three things. Staff updates here at Interstate Passport, project updates, and the ACE and Interstate Passport collaborations. First off, we've had several staffing changes in the past year, and so I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself and my colleagues to you. As previously mentioned, I'm the project coordinator and am the key point of contact for military and veteran affairs staff, academic advisors, and campus marketing staff. I also field parent and student questions and oversee our marketing and communication strategies. Diane Dorgan is our project manager and is the key point of contact for institution liaisons, registrars, and institutional researchers. She oversees the process for awarding and reporting passports and academic progress tracking data to National Student Clearinghouse, as well as helping institutions publish their Interstate Passport profile. Jen Raby is our administrative assistant. She is the first point of contact for any questions regarding Interstate Passport and oversees the office operations of Interstate Passport. And then lastly, Sarah Librant is our Director of Academic Leadership Initiatives and oversees the Interstate Passport program in addition to two other membership organizations at WICHE. She is the key point of contact for the Passport Review Board, state facilitators, and executive committee. She also manages our grant activities, and we will share our contact information following the call. As you know, Interstate Passport is a nationwide network of institutions dedicated to the block transfer of lower division general education. Passport is currently used by 59 institutions in 18 states. At the conclusion of our fourth year of implementation, the 2019-2020 academic year, over 49,000 students have been awarded a passport to date. Institutions are currently providing data to National Student Clearinghouse for the 2020-2021 academic year. In late 2020, WICHE received a grant from ECMC Foundation to expand the Interstate Passport Network by 20 institutions, 10 of which must have minority servicing institution status. We currently have 14 institutions that have signed a letter of intent to become a member and are in conversation with several dozen other institutions in the South and West. This grant allows us to offer these institutions a 2-year fee waiver and personalized onboarding support. Earlier this spring, WICHE also received a grant from the National Science Foundation in collaboration with New Mexico State University to begin thinking about what a STEM-specific passport would look like. And then lastly, WICHE has a long history of collaborating with national organizations such as the American Council on Education on various initiatives. As many of you know, for over 60 years, using an industry standard process, the faculty panels of ACE have evaluated learning what happens outside of the formal college setting, in the workplace, and the military, and issue recommendations for academic credit. Over the last year, WICHE and ACE have collaborated on the benefits of the passport learning outcomes and using them as a framework in evaluating and recommending college credit for training, certifications, and exams offered by hundreds of providers and major employers. Additionally, WICHE's Interstate Passport Military and Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee provided suggestions to ACE during their listening tour this past year, as they embarked on modernization ACE's military guide. The modernization of this guide results in time savings for institutions and cost savings for military student learners. We are excited for Wendy Garcia and Jackson Cora of Vantage Point to present the new military guide from ACE. There will be plenty of time for questions at the end of the presentation. So as questions arise, please feel free to type them in the chat box. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Wendy and Jackson. And Jackson, again, I'm sorry for your last name.
No apology necessary. You nailed it. That's 10 out of 10 pronunciation. So
Thank you.
Appreciate the introduction, Julie, and appreciate you all having us this afternoon. So really quickly, we'll be walking through a little bit of background on the ACE military guide, this modernized product, as well as a live demonstration of the product. I actually recognize some names on the phone right now. I think we've traded emails, a few of you in the past. Some of your institutions have registered for accounts, which will be heavily featured in this demonstration. So that's really exciting. Hopefully you have some additional context to pitch in. But right off the bat, I want to apologize. My bandwidth is not great, so you're not going to see me on video. You'll have to imagine my picture talking there. But Wendy and I sort of do a two-person team here, so she'll be manning the chat and answering those questions that you do throw in there. So don't hesitate to throw those out. I'll try and keep an eye on them as well as we go through. But Wendy, anything to add before we really kick it off?
No, I think you have that covered. I will be putting some resources and links in the chat. And then I know Julie said she'll also send those out after the call. So don't feel like you frantically have to take notes. You'll have information of this afterwards too. So thanks, Jackson.
Awesome. All right, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. And I mentioned that I wanted to provide some background, and that's simply because I think it's a good place to ground us and sort of start with the why rather than jumping straight into, we have this new modernized military guide, it's got all these great features. That is true, and we will talk about that. But really, why was this change necessary, both from a student military connected learner perspective, as well as from an academic institution perspective? So the big number to think about is in that top left-hand corner, 69%. We actually did a survey of about 1,100 academic institutions back in March of 2020. Feels like a very, very long time ago. But one of the key takeaways here was this response to this question: do you have a data system that helps you record and track your military credit award decisions? And nearly 7 out of 10 institutions said either flat out no, or I don't know if we have a system that does that. I don't know which of our systems work with that. So there's really a gap there systematically in what was provided to track those decisions and taking military credit and turning it into an equivalency and award to specific students. So we really centered on that, as well as a few other challenges that we heard in the listening tour, in feedback over the past couple of years. Like Julie mentioned, that this is very much a collaborative co-creating process with academic institutions, as opposed to something where we went off into a room and tinkered for a year and a half and then came out with what we think is the right solution. And you'll see that throughout as we walk through the demo, that there are key times where I'll point out and say, this was a direct piece of feedback from one of our design partners, institutions who we worked with over the course of the last year to build this product. In addition to that 69% statistic, we heard some common challenges and more of that qualitative feedback that, again, no common storage system for military credit awards. They're hand jammed into existing transfer systems, or they're just not tracked as closely or as systematically. In addition to that, there was limited visibility into both what my institution had done in the past. So that's really some knowledge that either was with one person in the transfer office or was written down somewhere, kept in a spreadsheet, not really accessible exactly when I needed it. And expanding that outward, there was no visibility into the decisions that were being made by peer institutions. Certainly not at a nationwide scale. There were some, within systems, within organizations that were doing really good things, but not in a way that I could compare on different criteria about who's doing what as far as awarding credit for military learning. And then finally, there was very much a workflow issue where faculty were key players in the process, but they weren't going to the military guide. There was printing of exhibits and emailing, cutting and pasting, and it was a little bit of a clunky process to try and get the right experts looking at the information so that you can actually award credit that assists the student, the military connected learner, on their degree plan. So hearing that, seeing the statistics that we saw in our responses, we really came out with this goal to provide a free application that addresses those challenges that relate to reviewing a student's military learning experiences and then awarding the appropriate academic credit to them. And so that's what we think that we've produced here, and what we've been hearing in very positive feedback from academic institutions, as well as many other stakeholders involved in the process, is with this modernized ACE Military Guide 1.0. You're going to see a redesigned search and display experience. You're going to see a reimagined look at the ACE exhibit, a little bit easier way to find what you're looking for and then understand what you're looking at. But what you're really going to see as far as the innovation points and the new features that really supercharge the ability to evaluate that learning is in these institution accounts. These free accounts that allow you to upload a student's joint services transcript, to analyze the learning that is represented on that transcript, and then figure out what credit is appropriate to award, and then bring in colleagues and say, here's the shared expertise that needs to take a look at this. Let's get this approved and get it to the finish line as far as getting that credit awarded. And so that's sort of just our quick 90-second, maybe it's a little bit longer than that, probably closer to 3 or 4 minutes background on the process behind this modernized ACE military guide. So let's jump in quickly to the actual application. So you all should be seeing the landing page of the modernized military guide, URL that is publicly accessible, launched on April 1st, militaryguide.acenet.edu. So several of you may have already taken a look at this, played around. So I'll walk through that with that understanding in mind. But here we are on the home page. And for those who had a lot of experience with the legacy military guide that was sunset earlier this year, it looks a lot different. You've got one single search bar, very much like Google or Bing or your favorite search engine, as opposed to what used to exist, which was maybe 7 or 10 different search criteria, a bunch of different search buttons. It was very much like learning a new language almost, when you had to figure out the right way to search the ACE military guide to pull up the right results that you wanted to find. And once you got there, the information was fantastic and very helpful, but that sticking point of not being able to get to the exhibit you're looking for was a big deal. So the first thing we chose to address was that sticking point. So I'm on my single search bar here and we'll start typing. And as I start typing, you actually see that these results populate in a drop-down list based on whatever I've entered. So I've only typed 5 letters and the system is already circulating through all the potential military occupation and course exhibits that exist in the military guide and showing me stuff that matches whatever I've entered. And I can enter anything here. I can enter the title of an occupation or a course. I can enter the military ID for that course or occupation, or the ACE ID. So basically anything I put in this search bar will help me find what I'm looking for. So let's say I'm looking for this indirect fire infantryman occupation. All I have to do is click on that result and I'm brought to the exhibit display page. So no sifting through search results page, one click and I'm on the exhibit. And this exhibit that I've landed on looks quite different. And again, I mentioned that I would call back to that sort of collaborative design process. And this is one of the key areas that we started off with, was going out to our institution partners and saying, okay, you look at an ACE exhibit, what is the first thing you look at? And the overwhelming response we got was credit recommendations. That's the first thing I look at. Everything else is good detail, but I want to see the credit recommendations first. So we moved around the exhibit, made it a little bit easier to read and understand, put it in bullet point format, and the credit recommendations are now the most prominent piece of the exhibit that you're going to look at. So you see for this Army occupation at skill level 30, I see the credit recommendations here, but I also see that they're clickable. And this is another piece of feedback that has been incorporated, that there wasn't always a smooth connection between the credit recommendation and the supporting learning outcomes that have been identified, or related competencies in some cases. So let's say I'm looking at this Intro to Communications credit rec, and I click on it. Here, the related competencies that support this credit recommendation that was made by ACE's team of faculty evaluators are connected directly to the specific recommendation that they support. So there's less of having to make a leap mentally by reading 2 different pieces of information and squaring them. Now they're actually visually connected, so I can click through and see all of the different competencies, or in the more recent exhibits, learning outcomes that support these recommendations of credit. And so that, what we've just talked through here, represents end-to-end everything that the legacy military guide used to be able to provide to users, whether they be academic institution users or other stakeholders. It's very much a search and retrieval of information, very straightforward. We've made the exhibits, redesigned them in such a way that based on feedback, is a little bit more usable. The search still has all the ability to filter down on any criteria that you might want to. So if that's something that you're looking for, fret not, it's still there. You could still decide I only want to see occupations versus courses. You could still decide I only want to see a specific military branch, or even I want to decide the dates after which something has been reviewed. So, you take out here what we've already searched for, and I say, show me everything that's been reviewed in the year 2021. I get to pull that up, and now I can click through and see these newly reviewed occupations and courses. So that is a replacement and an improvement upon the existing functionality. The exciting part, and the place where I want to spend most of our time this afternoon, is on what's net new, the brand new institution account, which preview 539 academic institutions have already registered for access to as of this afternoon. So something that's really taken off in the first 2.5 months of this application being live and accessible is this institution account. So let's head on over there now, come up to the login screen. Again, this is something that has never been available previously in the ACE military guide. So everything we're about to see is new and is also grounded in that feedback that we've been hearing from our academic institution partners that we heard in those listening tours that Julie mentioned at the start of the call. So I'll go ahead and log in here. And what we've been able to provide is each academic institution can now sort of create and manage their own account within the ACE military guide, both from an administrative perspective and from that sort of those valuable features. So I'll touch briefly on the administrative portion. It's really a federated access system. So one person becomes the institution administrator and is the person who's in contact with our team at ACE. But once that person has their account, you control who you bring into the process. And this was very intentionally done because one of the key messages we took away was that every institution does things a little bit differently. Some places have a one-person operation where one person is getting every joint service transcript, reviewing all of them, figuring out the right credit, and pulling in the necessary people. In other places, it's a team of 7 to 10 folks who they see a lot of military service members and veterans, so they have a big staff to handle that kind of work. And we wanted to accommodate every possibility there in such a way that it would work well no matter what your setup. So as the admin in this test account, in my demonstration example, I'm able to actually create accounts for whoever I need to. And that can include various types of staff on my team. So I could have transcript evaluators on my team, people who actually do the evaluation. I could have faculty subject matter experts on my team. I could have institution level approvers. I could even have a records specialist who just handles the documents themselves. All of those account types are accessible within the military guide. All I've got to do is add in with their name, email, and pick the right role for them, which is supported in the onboarding and training resources that are, again, accessible from this page. But as soon as I click save and I create that account, they'll get an automatic email with a link to click and then set up a password and have their account set up in full. So you'll see that a lot throughout the rest of this demonstration and throughout the application, that there's an automated email feature so that every time you do something that prompts an action from someone else on your team, they're getting an email with a direct link. It's as easy as opening your email inbox and not having to constantly go back to the application and check and see if you've got notifications or something along those lines. So you really have control over the team that you put in place for the Modernized Military Guide. Another piece that you have that total control over is the data that gets integrated to the application. So I'll come here to our data integration tab. But one way to personalize and really customize and supercharge your account is to load it with data that's relevant specifically to your institution. So one of the things the administrator can do is actually upload course catalog data, upload degree program data, and upload prior credit awards or equivalencies that your institution has already created for military learning, whether you've got 100 of those in a spreadsheet somewhere or just 5 or 10. Uploading those to the system allows you to access that data when it's relevant. I'll show you just a little bit how that will come into play on the workflow screen. But I'll show an example, and one of the pieces that we're happy about here is that we're getting a lot of feedback that this is a very easy way to integrate your data. So we'll pick our course catalog data here. Within a couple of seconds, that spreadsheet that I have in a comma-separated value format has loaded to the system, and I'm brought to this review screen that says, okay, here's your data, take a look at it and make sure it looks right. And I can move through all the different lines that I just uploaded. I can make a change if I want to. So if this is actually, advanced auditing, I can make that change and save it to the system so that my courses are now accessible to anyone at my institution who wants to evaluate a transcript or who needs that information throughout their day-to-day work within the Modernized Military Guide. So that's what uploading a course catalog looks like. Again, I wanted to show the credit award side of the house because this is where you start to get into this idea of 69%, remember that number, of those institutions who did not have a dedicated system that would allow them to save and access their military credit equivalencies. This military guide, as much as it is a search and display function, starts to serve that purpose of storing equivalencies and bringing them up when they're relevant to the user. And so one way to kickstart that is to upload your data for your existing military credit equivalencies. So if you've got that data in place, that is really an easy way to jumpstart by downloading the sample file, structuring the data quickly and uploading it to the system, and it saves and sort of umbrellas out to everyone who has an account at your institution. So I know that the administrative portion can be a little dry, but I think it's important setup there to see that it only takes an afternoon really to set up your institution account, and that's if you're jumping between things and context switching. It really only takes just a couple of hours of work to get your military guide account up and running. And once it's up and running, it is humming, and the work of evaluating a student's joint services transcript really does become much easier. And the reason for that is why we're going to jump to the workflow page next. So this is really where you're going to see that value add piece of this free application. One piece that we had to tackle early on was the disconnect between looking at a student's joint services transcript, sort of having to think about that in an academic context, not really getting all the information and supporting detail that you would find on the military guide, but then having to search individual courses and occupations on the military guide really became a hassle. So we put in place the ability to actually upload the PDF copy of a student's joint services transcript. So I'll show that now with one of our test JSTs. But within a couple of seconds, I've now uploaded that student's JST, again, PDF copy of it, and it's bumped me to what we call the Centralized Review Hub, a one-screen solution for looking through all of that student's military learning experience, whether it be occupations or courses, understanding what details behind there and figuring out which credit you ought to award, what credit is appropriate at your institution for that military learning. So let's break that down sort of piece by piece. We'll start here on the left-hand side. What the system has done is actually read through that PDF document, pulled out the courses and occupations that service member, that military connected learner has completed, and put them in a dynamic table so that I can click through, and this is basically the transcript represented, in a digital format. So as I click through, you notice that on the right-hand side, this ACE exhibit is populating with only the information that I need to know about that student's military learning. So I'm showing occupations now, but I can come in here and click through and see the course exhibits as well. It's got all the same information that was previously available through the search that we just looked at a couple minutes ago, except I don't have to search now. This is 3, 6, 8, 12 different learning experiences that we're looking at here. All I had to do was upload, wait 2 seconds, and the system was able to pull them up for me. So I can click through and see all of that relevant information without having to search individually. So that's part one. No more searching when you're able to upload that JST through this institution account. Part two is the additional data that you are able to access. It's brought straight to your screen when you're accessing through a logged in institution account, when you do upload that JST. So, we'll come here to the Human Resources Specialist occupation, and there's a tab here called Military Civilian Crosswalk. Now, what this put in place is actually a data connection to the Department of Labor and the Department of Education data that connects and crosswalks military occupations to civilian occupations. So this is another way to help triangulate, what sort of credit, what sort of degrees should this credit start applying to at my institution? Well, this military occupation has been crosswalked and is said to be related to all these civilian occupations. So, let's go for human resources managers. And then that civilian occupation connects into these degrees according to the Department of Education. So it's really taking that, again, moving from that military language into the civilian world and then to the academic world, and really creating a powerful combination of those factors just as another piece of information as you're conducting an evaluation. It's not the end all be all, but it is a piece of data that is previously was stored somewhere that was not accessible, is now sort of delivered right to you when you're conducting an evaluation. The additional data on top of that military civilian occupation crosswalk comes into play in these check marks that are next to the learning experiences in this table. And this is one of my favorite parts of any demonstration and of the application itself, because the way I put it is these check marks mean there is very valuable data relating to this military learning experience, and you should click on them. What I mean by that, and I'll go column by column because they all mean something different. So let's start in the middle here. And I do apologize if there are sirens that you can hear in the background. I'm right on a main hub here in Washington, D.C., so we do get a lot of those. But let's start here in the PCA column. So when I hover over the title PCA, the pop-up says has previous credit awards. Now, what that means is that my institution has awarded credit for this military learning in the past. So the system, as we've talked about, I've either uploaded credit awards to the system or I've created them through the system in the past. Either way, the system remembers, oh, human resources specialist, this ACE exhibit, you've awarded credit for this before. And if you click on it, I'll tell you what you've awarded. So I click here and it looks like about a month ago, my demonstration institution awarded management at the 100s level, principles of management course. So now I'm able to consistently award the same credit no matter who it is at my institution. Maybe this is a shared responsibility. Maybe there are multiple evaluators. I have a real-time record of what we have awarded in the past for this military learning. And if I want to award this again to the new student, all I've got to do is click on it, and I'm able to save a new equivalency for that student. So that's really, again, this becomes a database of sorts that allows you to access the decisions that have been made in the near past or in the distant past about a military learning experience and what credit you and your institutional colleagues are looking to award. But we talked about, again, harking back to that introduction slide, we talked about how that was an issue, but a similar and related issue is that there was no visibility externally. I didn't know what anybody else was doing, let alone what my own institution was doing with military learning and awarding that credit. So let's come here to our basic combat training course and talk about this third column, which is PIC, stands for Peer Institutions Credit Award Data. As some of you may be able to guess, what that means is when there's a check mark in this column, other institutions using the ACE military guide have awarded credit for that learning experience before. And if I click on that check mark, I can see what they awarded, at least the course ID of what they've awarded. So I'll do that now. And there's a lot of information coming our way, but I'll come here to the by institution tab. So what this tells me is here are the institutions who have awarded credit for this basic combat training course. I can see a lot of information about them. In some cases, they've chosen to withhold their name. That's okay. I can still see all of this other data relating to how I benchmark and compare myself against these institutions. So if I'm a 2-year college, I don't really care necessarily about what the 4 years are doing, but show me what this 2-year in Mississippi is awarding. And oh, maybe I'm in the same accrediting body as them. I can see that it looks like they're awarding general PE activity, individual sports, and there's a couple of different course IDs there. This is information that is coming to me right when I need it. So I'm looking at this specific military learning experience, and I'm looking at a school in Mississippi. Now, there's no reason I would ever be able to see that before unless I knew someone at this institution or we had, sort of an agreement with their governing body. But now with the ACE military guide and the critical mass of institutions who are using the guide, I can start to see and benchmark, okay, what kind of decisions are my peers making? I'm seeing a lot of physical education, it looks like. I'm seeing some general electives credit. So it starts to be clear to me what the consensus is, among all my peers, not just, my fellow institutions in my system or in my state, but really everyone across the country has centered around a certain type of military credit that is being awarded. So this is the piece of the application that we're actually getting some of the most positive reviews on because it is that visibility that has not previously existed. And it is here for free when additional institutions sign up and start to save that information. It becomes sort of an engine of growth and just continues to get bigger and bigger for more comparisons across institutions. So that's the first 2 check marks that I mentioned here. I do want to touch on the third check mark, which if I hover over it, tells me that this military learning experience has the ACE taxonomy. Now, this is a newly developed taxonomy code that ACE is working with faculty evaluators to build as they conduct reviews here. But essentially what it means is it's a means of standardizing the learning outcomes as well as additional information that relates to each credit recommendation. So let's take a look at applied leadership for an example. So normally I'm looking at this exhibit and I see, okay, there's 3 hours recommended in applied leadership. I can click on that and see here are the learning outcomes that students who take this military course achieve in the classroom and passing the assessment. They've reached these learning outcomes. On top of those standard learning outcomes, I can click on this blue tag and see the information that the faculty evaluators have said is most closely aligned with this recommendation. So it's not just, hey, here's applied leadership, but the faculty team has said it probably fits into a management academic prefix. It's probably an upper level course for 3 semester hours. And if I had to pick a degree program that it relates closest to, it's probably an organizational leadership degree. And oh, by the way, here's the Department of Education's CIP code, the 6-digit code. So this is sort of a new era of an ACE credit recommendation because they're becoming standardized, because all this additional rich information is being connected to these credit recommendations and these learning outcomes. And the system, if I upload that JST, gives me an alert that says, hey, this exhibit, this course or occupation has that information incorporated to it. Now, this is a recent effort. It just sort of started being applied in summer of last year, so you won't see the vast majority of exhibits or JSTs having this taxonomy on it. But moving forward, this will be applied pretty much comprehensively to ACE's recommendation of credit. So you'll be seeing a lot more of that data and helping you make that decision, helping you understand where the faculty evaluation team is coming from. So I appreciate you all bearing with me. There's only a couple more things to show off here, but hopefully you're getting this sense, and hopefully I'm conveying it, that this page, after you upload the joint services transcript, is jam-packed with information. It's got all the information you could possibly want about military learning, and you can pull it up lickety-split in just a couple of seconds, uploading the PDF of that student's JST. We also have heard that sometimes you don't have the time or the inclination to go line by line through every ACE exhibit that this student has based off their training and occupation learning completed in the military. And that's why we've put in place this toggle view. So if I toggle to the summary view, now I'm seeing across every learning experience the different hours and subject areas where credit was recommended. So this list here has all my hours as well as my subject area where credit is recommended, and I can filter that down. So if I'm purely looking for a management recommendation, I can start typing and I'll see everything that relates to management within this service member's learning and where those credit recommendations come in. And so let's say, all right, I want to find this human resources management. If I click on that, it says, oh, here are the 2 exhibits that have human resource management credit recommendations. And you can pull them up just by clicking on them. So remember, we were looking at this earlier. Well, I wanted to find the HR management. This is another way of getting to that exhibit, another way of figuring out what I am looking for when I'm thinking about awarding credit. So I toggled the view back here, and I'll bring us back to maybe this public affairs officer qualification course. We've talked a lot, and I've talked a lot in this past 10 minutes or so about all the information that's jam-packed in here and that you can find in order to make a decision. But we didn't just want this to be an informational tool. We wanted it to be the true decision support so that you can actually take action on this screen. So I'm an evaluator, I'm looking at this course, I see 1 hour in public speaking, and I say, yes, I looked at the strategies, I think this deserves 1 hour in our public speaking course that we have at this demonstration institution. I can come up to the top of the screen and click Draft Credit Award, and it will help me create an equivalency right here on the same screen for the military learning that I was just looking at. So because I integrated my course data, I can start typing, and oh, there's my actual courses that I just integrated as the administrator in this dropdown. So I don't have to know the ID off the top of my head. I can just start typing. Here's our public speaking course. We're gonna round these hours down to 1, but I can also tag in some additional metadata that helps with the historical record of why this credit award was created, why this equivalency was created. I can tell others at my institution, save it in the record, which ACE recommendation what am I basing this off of? And obviously I'm basing this off 1 hour in public speaking. I can indicate, is this a degree requirement, an elective, general education? I think this is gen ed, I bet. I can even tie it into a specific CIP code, those 6-digit codes we were just talking about. Let's say it's for a business and corporate communications degree. I can tie that to the award itself, along with a specific rationale. So let's say I really want to get into the decision process. I can say the information on the exhibit allowed me to draw the equivalency. That's my reasoning. And when I hit save, it auto populates here in a running list of credit awards at the top of my screen. So if I have 35 minutes to review this student's learning and draft some credit awards or equivalencies for them, I can do that and continue to move through each of these military learning experiences, and they'll still populate here at the top of the screen. Now, these all show up in a pending status. So a lot of the situations we've heard and worked with institutions is, okay, I make a decision or a suggestion of a credit award, but I need a faculty member to take a look at that and agree with me in order to actually give that credit. thankfully, that's where the workflow piece of the military guide comes into play. So if I click on my handy little paper airplane button here, submit for review, I can send this to anyone at my institution with an account. So in this case, I'm going to send it to my faculty member. Let's say this is a communications faculty member, and I want to say, please take a look and validate my decision. Now, when I hit send here, which I will, that faculty member receives a ping in their email inbox with a link that takes them directly to this screen. Only their buttons have changed, and instead of saying, submit for review, it says approve or reject. So they get to look at all the same information and then make a decision. Yes, thumbs up, no, thumbs down, send it back. And that's all they have to do. So click one link in their email, take a look at the information, and give you the approval or the thumbs down if you need to go back to the drawing board. And as the evaluator who just put that out there to them, I can actually keep track of where everything is on my workflow screen. So we've got these cards, we've got these swim lanes. It tells me that, oh, we just uploaded this 3:41 Eastern time. We sent it to our communications faculty member, and it's still under their review. So if I want to take a look, our test faculty still reviewing the award. They have not done anything with it yet. Once they make a decision, it jumps into this next column, and I can move on from there. Maybe I've got a second level of review, or maybe that's all we ever needed, and I can mark it as done, which I can do right here for an example. And it jumps to the last column because this is now finished, and that credit equivalency has now been saved to my institution's account here. In order to access that information, the administrator does have the ability to export all data that's been saved in the military guide. So don't worry that your data is going to be trapped in the military guide. It can all come out as much as it can be saved in the system, and then can be used for internal systems. Again, institutions across the country all have different setups, so we wanted it to be flexible in such a way that allows for that to be the case. So I've been talking a lot, and that's actually everything that I've got to show here. The last piece I did want to show is actually jumping back to the PowerPoint, and it's just this idea, and hopefully you all are seeing the map with the 539 registered institutions. But this is very much a nationwide scale that this application has been rolled out on. I keep repeating that 539 number, but you can see on the map that they are well distributed. As Wendy mentioned right before we got on here, Wyoming is the only state that has yet to sign up, register for an account. So I think I saw some folks from Wyoming on the call. If you're interested, please reach out because we'd love to have all 50 states represented. But it does have that good mix of 4-year and 2-year public, private, for-profit, nonprofit. And then key for us and for our team is this third pie chart here about whether these institutions were previous military guide users or not. And 30%, so nearly a third of these institutions have never used the military guide before. So this application is really there to support you no matter where you come from on that spectrum. If you have never thought about military learning, I'm assuming based off the clientele on this call that that's not the case. But if it's, maybe your processes aren't, firmly in place, or there's no technology to support it, you can really get started out of the box with this application. Or if you have a very, very mature process, you've been at this for years now, you still can find a lot of value because there are features and data that are delivered through the military guide that really are not available anywhere else. And so that's everything that I have to share. And I'll bring back Wendy here because I know you've got some great change management and training stuff to share. So please, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you, Jackson. So I did put in the chat link, a link of how your institution can sign up for this free application. And I want to let you know, we really thought through this, and we don't want you to fret or worry about, oh my gosh, if we sign up, how are we going to train everybody? So what we have is once you do sign up, we'll verify that you are actually an institution, have an OPID number, because, the link is open for anybody to sign up. And then we will send you an email that has about a 45-minute training video that we've recorded with this process, very similar to what Jackson's gone over along with the PowerPoint. But then what we also give you is training manuals that have step-by-step instructions and videos, short videos that you can watch and then also give out to the person at your user role. So in other words, if you're sending somebody up as a faculty user, we have a short modified program. It's already set there, a PDF with clickable links, and has the video right there in it. In less than 5 minutes, they can either look at the step-by-step or click and watch the video and see what function they need to do, what goes for their role. So they don't have to know everything end to end. We do provide that to the admin user, but for those different roles, if you have somebody that's only uploading your JSTs, we have the training broken down, given to you for that. We also are providing out to institutions information that you guys can promote out into your community and school, that you are supporting military learners. You know, you have this process. So we have even some press releases, some social media, some information like that, if you want to put that out on your site. And then every Tuesday afternoon, Jackson and I host what we call open house hours. It's 3:30 Eastern time. It's a 1 hour, drop in as you want to, come in and out, but you can ask questions. So it's not like, oh, you have it, go have fun. We come in, ask the questions you have, learn from other schools also. And then on our application, and Jackson, if you can pull up our application real quick, the one thing that we did create was a feedback loop. So if ever you're in there and you have feedback for us, good, bad, ugly, whatever, you can actually click on that link that says feedback and be able to send us any feedback questions you have, and it will go to one of us who then can reach out to you. So if there's something you're doing and you like it a lot, let us know. If there's something that's not working for you, let us know. Anything like that. But we really have set this out. We launched April 1st, as Jackson said, have over 500 schools that have already been utilizing this, awarding credit. The feedback we're really receiving is it's cut down on the amount of time at their institutions. What they used to have to spend to evaluate a military learner is cut down. It's also made it clearer for faculty people to understand and award credit for military learning, where there was a disconnect sometimes where faculty was like, well, I don't understand if they really did that in their military training. Now they're able to see that in some of the justifications that are going on with that. So there's a lot of, and then it's also allowed, as Jackson said, the ability to work across teams. One system of working across teams. We didn't want to do a one size fits all. We wanted to create it so it can fit for your institution as what you need. But I did want to let you know, like I said, we have the training available to you. All it takes is going on, signing up. We'll verify that your school is not already signed up, and then we'll get you set through the process. Whoever signs up doesn't have to be the admin user. You can sign up. We'll send you the information. Once you get it, then you can step back and go, who at our school really should be that admin person? And then we'll set them with their admin login information. Some schools do have more than one admin user. We do that. We don't do 10 admin users, but we do a couple at some schools. Just because we know some schools need a backup person. Some schools might have satellite campuses that fall under the same OPID number. So we do have situations like that we're willing to work with you. But that's kind of, I just wanted to let you know what the next steps or process would be for those that are interested into signing up, and then about the training that we would provide out to the school users. The one thing, like Jackson can testify, we've heard is schools will say this is so out of the box. They can get it, set it up in that same afternoon, and start awarding credits at this, that day or the next day. It's nothing that takes, a week of time to get everybody trained and on board. So I'm going to stop right there and open it up to see if anybody has any questions for Jackson or myself, or comments or feedback, anything.
Julie, I know we probably went a little bit over time. We do like to talk, but a lot of good information to share.
No, you guys are good. I have 10 more minutes that we could go. So if anyone has any questions, or Jackson or Wendy, that would be great. And again, we are recording this and we will send this out to everyone that attended today, along with some of our other groups here at Interstate Passport, and that you can share as well. So Wendy and Jackson, that was a great presentation. Thank you for your time today. Again, any last call for questions, comments? Great. All right. Well, if we have none, I will let everyone go and have a good rest of your day.